People like you are the dregs of society. You're not deserving of the taxes we contribute to sustain your existence. I've always believed you should simply vanish. I regretted bringing her to this restaurant today. Getting all excited, my mother, Chane's face, was expressionless, her eyes reflecting a distant place as if nothing was there. I thought maybe her heart wasn't here with us at the moment. It was scarier when my vision started to narrow and darkness crept in. And when I became completely blind, she says cheerfully. So when she actually lost her sight completely, she felt relieved. Strangely enough, she had nightmares of going blind, waking up thinking it was just a dream, only to realize that too was a dream. When she opened her eyes, her field of vision was narrowing. Those days were so hard, just hearing about them is painful. She had aspired to be a professional oil painter since high school. She had been attending a painting academy to get into art college. Her hands always covered in paint as she faced her artwork every day. The day she passed her university entrance exams, returning home after celebrating with friends over dinner, she was hit by a car that ran a red light. She was rushed to the hospital with a head injury, but the x-rays showed no abnormalities, and she got away with just some scratches and bruises. I'm alive, maybe I'm lucky, she thought. But a month later, the symptoms appeared. The corners of her vision started to feel dark, her vision blurred. At first, she thought these minor abnormalities were just due to fatigue. As it got worse, Sophia, who had visited a small local hospital, was immediately referred to a university hospital. Traumatic cataract, said Dr. Brown, and she wondered, why me? Anything else would have been better. Why did it have to be my eyes? Frantically painting, and painting more, yet feeling unfulfilled, my mother completely lost her vision 3 months later and was thrown into a world of darkness. Back then, she was so distraught, you wouldn't believe it, considering her bright personality now. She even joked about having attempted suicide during those tough times. She faithfully met my father, they got married, and I was born. I was able to become strong because of your father, Jake, and Daisy being blind. She promised herself not to let anyone look down on her husband or children. As a wife, she cherished her husband, made lunches for her children, taught them, scolded them, and really tried her best in everything. Unable to do everything alone, she always sought help and found ways to manage. When she heard my sister, 3 years younger than me, named Daisy, was being harassed at school, she even went to the school alone, despite the tendency to be shunned because of her blindness. She ran for PTA and worked hard to establish her place, making her popular with neighbors and other moms. Even after her kids graduated, being a guy, I was too embarrassed to say thank you face to face. During adolescence, I complained about the color of the lunch she made and called her names. I even told her not to come to school events. Yet, I always respected my mother, who always did her best for us. Mother, strong and cheerful, had a tough past. I grew up pretty ordinary and healthy, but whenever I think that I've inherited my mother's strength, I feel like I can do anything. Finn from the baseball team likes Luna during high school when everyone gets excited about who likes whom. I was too busy with work and studies to care about that, but I remember hearing multiple times about Finn's unrequited love for Luna. Never thought it would relate to me, though. To fulfill my sister Daisy's dream of becoming a news anchor, our family sent her to a prestigious private school for girls, which was a bit of a stretch for us financially. Our family, where my father is a typical office worker, had to pull together and save every penny to afford her tuition. Luckily, I was a decent student and wasn't interested in private schools, so I ended up attending a mid-tier public high school. Aware of our family's financial situation, I diligently worked at a part-time job in a diner, saving up for college and personal expenses. Half a year into my job, Finn started frequenting the diner, lingering around and specifically targeting me. Ah, that must be the Finn rumored to have a crush. I hadn't interacted much with him until he began showing up during my shifts, spending hours with his friends. He was loud, disturbing other customers, and despite repeated warnings from our manager Max, he wouldn't calm down. He kept smirking at me. I was puzzled by this until Luna approached me the following week. "You're always in the library studying when you're not working, right?" "I've noticed." "I like you," she confessed, handing me a letter with a heart on it. Finn's behavior was linked to this. Unfortunately, I had no interest in Luna. "Sorry, I appreciate your feelings," I tried to say it as gently as possible, but she started crying and ran away. From the next day, Chance's harassment intensified. It started with just being at the family restaurant, but it escalated to harassment at school when someone tampered with my textbooks. I was truly at my wit's end. Finn's family is wealthy, with both parents apparently holding executive positions in publicly traded companies. He maintains his grades with the help of a private tutor, a one-on-one teaching arrangement. I didn't want to succumb to the bullying, nor did I like the idea of reporting it, so I decided to focus on my studies as a form of resistance. I thought if I could outshine him academically, he might stop bothering me. In hindsight, it was a tough thought. Consequently, Finn disliked me even more, but I gained enough academic success to choose any university for my undergraduate studies. I opted for a local state university. By then, Chan's antics had decreased. Rumor had it that Luna had found a new interest in university. I regained my peace, enjoying learning and expanding my horizons. College was a joy each day, feeling like it broadened my perspectives. After using my high school savings for graduate studies, I landed a job at a mid-tier research institution, starting later than most peers. I planned to treat my parents with my first paycheck to ease their concerns. My sister Daisy had recently become a local TV announcer and had already treated our parents, so I felt I should do the same. This restaurant was where my dad first met my mom. "Once I'm wealthy, I'll take you to that restaurant," she frequently joked about the restaurant's name. I was thrilled that my childhood dream of taking her there was becoming a reality. On the day an emergency business trip meant Dad had to leave, so it was just Mom and me. As we walked arm in arm, she joked, "Next time, I should say I want to go to Caribbean Sea." I laughed. "What's this place like?" she asked. Once seated, I described the restaurant's ambience, the staff's attire, the decor, and the chandelier color. I wasn't sure if it stirred my mother's memories, but I described it vividly. Then a familiar voice said, "Jake, long time no see." It was Finn in an expensive suit. He sat in my father's seat and started boasting about his life and invited me. He had attended a top university and landed a job at a major company through his parents' influence. This made me think of the costs of elite education. Being part of the elite means hardly working while the paychecks ruin life's easy. "So what about you, Jake? Still at the diner part-time?" he asked with spite, maintaining our old hierarchy. I disliked the idea that anything I said would make me seem inferior. Composed, I spoke of my academic journey, my research job, and bringing my mom here with my first paycheck. "This place must have been a stretch on your first paycheck, huh?" he taunted. Despite his attempts to provoke me, I remained calm but frustrated. I wanted him to leave, mindful of my silent mother. "As it's a special occasion, I'd appreciate it if you left." "Our meal is about to arrive," I said bluntly. Perhaps it was my blunt demand for him to leave that bored Finn, who then turned to look at my mother. He seemed to realize that she couldn't see him. "Sorry for intruding on your family time," he said. He playfully waved his hand in front of my mother's eyes, and upon seeing her non-reaction, his face took on a mischievous, almost triumphant expression. "What, so you're the child of a disabled person?" My anger surged, and I was about to raise my voice, but I regained my composure when my mother called out. "Jake," Finn respectfully pulled a business card from his pocket. "I'm Jake's high school classmate, Finn. If you have a disability, our company can offer some support." "Here's my business card," he said. He mentioned the company's name and handed the card to my mother. "Oh, you can see." My apologies, his insincerity was obvious. My mother remained silent. Well, it seemed Finn was trying to take advantage of the company's promotion of supporting people with disabilities. I think people like you are a drain on society, not worth living off our taxes, right? Ever thought it'd be better for the country if you just disappeared? With a beaming smile, I was about to ask my mom, I think this guy is going to ruin the entire celebration, just as I was considering asking the staff to have him escorted out. My mom said quietly, handing out your company's card, you are representing them. Should I take what you just said as your true feelings? My mother faced Finn with her sightless eyes, responding with a strong tone and a mocking air. Finn retorted, wouldn't the world be much better off if all disabled people just disappeared? There are plenty of them at my company, and it's sickening. Is this some kind of charity work or what? I expected my mom to respond firmly, but she simply said, it's such a pity to see a young person with so much potential having such thoughts, and then she fell silent. Can't even argue because it hit too close to home, huh? Saying this, Finn got up from his seat, looking interested. Since it's a special occasion, let me share some good advice with you, my mom said. Tomorrow, you'll be called to the executive's office and lose an important job. I may be blind, but I can see your future. It wouldn't be fair not to tell you, she said with a laugh. Chance scoffed, dismissing her as delusional, and left satisfied with having spoiled the mood. Sorry for ruining our celebratory dinner, my mother apologized. It wasn't her fault. Finn was an acquaintance of mine. I should have ignored him from the start, I said. What was that prediction about? I asked her. I'd never heard her say something like that before, but it didn't seem like she'd easily lie about knowing the future. She was definitely up to something, she said. You'll understand by tomorrow, she said with just that one sentence, and I could feel the pressure in her voice indicating that she didn't want to discuss this topic any further as the dishes started to arrive, and I explained the colors and presentation to my mom, who was surprised by the deliciousness. Thoughts of Finn gradually slipped from my mind in the taxi home. My mother's distant gaze, despite her blindness, troubled me. The next day, during my break at work, I checked my phone to find several missed calls from an unknown number. Is that you, Jake? Sorry, please hear me out, the voice said when I called back. It was Finn. However, I could sense an atmosphere of desperation, as if he was on the verge of tears. It seems he had gone through great lengths to get my contact info through a classmate since we hadn't exchanged numbers. Please, I apologize for everything. Tell your mother I was wrong about yesterday, he pleaded. I was confused. As my mother had predicted, he had been called to the executive's office that morning and fired. I didn't know your mother had such power. This is really bad for me, he said in panic. I calmed him down, promising to check with my mother, and ended the call. When I called her, she answered after one ring. It was as if she knew the call was coming. When I told her about Chance's call, she quietly said, I told you so, didn't I? I asked her what she had done. I know Tom Bryan, the president of that company. I just reported that his views on people with disabilities are not good for the future of the company, she explained. I was astounded to learn that my mother is actually a shareholder in Chance's company. Bryan, the company. She said that Tom was the person who helped her when she was in despair about going blind and even thought about ending her life. Apparently, Tom also played a role in connecting her with my father. I had never heard of such a thing before because our house has always had to be frugal. When Tom was starting his company, there was an unfortunate trouble. He asked my father to invest in it as a way of thanking him for saving me, she explained. The shares were inherited by my mother after my grandfather passed away. She said she had no intention of selling them, so they couldn't really be called an asset. Then she said, I'll get in touch so you and Finn come to the same restaurant as yesterday, and hung up the phone. Despite being by my side all this time, her tone was so commanding she seemed like a different person. After work, I met up with Finn and headed to the restaurant from yesterday. Finn, looking completely different from yesterday, seemed to have no spirit. He appeared extremely fatigued, wearing a rumpled suit. As we were seated, I saw my mother and a man talking at the table. Mr. Bryan, from the way Finn addressed him. I realized this man was Tom Finn. Right, I've heard everything. I've done some research on what you've been doing in the company. I've concluded that someone like you is a risk to the growth of our company. As declared today, you will have to leave our company, he said. Finn, pale as a ghost, realized the decision was final and slumped to the ground. Brian's company has recently launched a project to support people with disabilities. They are actively creating employment opportunities for people with disabilities and seek employees who can maintain a neutral emotional stance towards them. It's understood that if people with biases are employed, it hampers the effective collaboration and mutual support with those who have disabilities. In a company striving to bring out the best form of synergy, individuals who lower the corporate value under the guise of the company's name are seen as a future risk. It was discovered through an internal investigation that Finn had been harassing and verbally abusing people who are deaf, have mobility issues, and others. Everyone feared the uncertainty of finding a new job after leaving here, and Finn exploited this fear to continue his harassment. Hearing his comment, "They are disabled, a burden on society. My venting a bit should be seen as contributing," I felt dizzy. My mother realized that if he could say such things to her, he would do the same in the company. Despite Tom's efforts to create a society where people like him help each other, Finn was doing the exact opposite. She said she reported him, believing that Finn's presence was not suitable for the company's future growth. While Finn seemed to regret his actions, it was too late. Sooner or later, voices would have been raised, either from those harassed inside the company or from somewhere